What is up, everybody? Today we are going to do some digging to answer the famous question of, is sex before marriage a sin? Yes, we are going to answer that question, and we're going to see what the Word of God says about it. So let's go and let's discover. Welcome back, friends, or just welcome to my new friends that are just joining. And so I'm your girl Alicia, and this is just a channel about true love, which is unconditional love. So we're just a bunch of lovers choosing to impact this world with God's love. So if you want to join in on the love, click that subscribe button and join in. Join and subscribe. Okay, you guys, so I'm like completely nervous to answer this question, because when God gave me the answer to this question, I was like in complete shock. I'm like, wait a minute, God, what? And so I felt like for a minute, because of my background and everything in the church and like how I grew up, I'm like, am I going to the dark side? Like, what's going on, Jesus? And so I am going to give you guys the answer first, and then I'm going to expound on the answer and give you guys biblical proof of why that is the answer. And so you'll be able to look into the Bible for yourself and see why that is the answer that God gave me, because God is going to only give what his word says. And so it's not going to be like all confusing and stuff like that. But I'm so nervous to give you guys this answer, because it's like, oh my gosh, are you serious? But once you learn the reason, you will know. So, okay, let's dig in. Okay, here's the question. Is sex before marriage a sin? Yes or no? Yes or no? Okay, this is the answer God gave me. No. The answer is no. Shocking, right? Okay, guys. The answer is no, because the Bible, okay, get this, the Bible actually teaches that sex is marriage. Okay, sex is marriage. I know you guys are like, what? Yes, the Bible actually teaches that sex is marriage. Even Jesus, when he was doing his talking, and it's also in the Bible, and we're going to touch on that, teaches that sex is marriage. So that is why sex before marriage is not a sin, because sex is marriage. It doesn't make sense, okay? Because sex is marriage. And so we're gonna look and see why. Okay, so before we dig in, I know you're probably thinking, well, if sex is marriage, why has Christianity for centuries been teaching that sex before marriage is a sin? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. And you might also be thinking, why should we trust her rather than the centuries of teaching that we've been taught for so long? Well, to answer that, don't trust me. Trust God. God is timeless. And by the way, just because something has been around for a long period of time doesn't make it automatically correct. God is timeless, and that means he can correct us at any point in time he chooses. Okay, so time doesn't make anything correct or more correct. Only truth does. Truth makes things correct or more correct. And who is truth? God is truth. And so God only makes things correct or more correct. And that's why he corrects us whenever he wants to, because he's timeless. And so he doesn't care about, oh, this has been around for centuries. Who cares about that? He's saying, I'm going to correct this now, and I'm choosing right now to correct this. Okay, y'all. So I grew up in a very strict Christian home. Okay, by the age of like 12 or 13, my dad was ordained as a pastor in the Kojic denomination. And for those of you who don't know what Kojic is, it stands for Church of God in Christ. And so my childhood and teenage years and everything was church, 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 and church. And even before my dad was ordained as a pastor, we would go to church all the time, Sundays, Sunday evenings when I was very young. And then like through the weekday, we would go to church. And then for vacations, it was church because they would have these large church conventions where a whole bunch of churches would gather together and praise and worship and everything else. And so my whole childhood was church, 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 church. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing. I love church. Even still now to this day, my favorite time in church is worship. You know, being with Jesus, that one-on-oneness, you know, it's just amazing. And so, but I'm telling you this to kind of give you a background of like what my mindset was, you know, back then, you know, as God was teaching and helping me, talking to me, you know, through his people. Okay, so growing up and going to all this church, you know, I would constantly hear, you know, leaders and everything in the church talk about fornication. And so the way they described it, the way they defined fornication was two people, a man and a woman, in a romantic relationship, and they were having sex before marriage. And so my definition of fornication became sex before marriage. And so I know that in the Christian church, there's a lot of other people that also believe that the definition of fornication is sex before marriage, because that's all that I got, you know, when, you know, them teaching about sex before marriage, you know, and also the word shacking, you know, shacking is a sin to the church as well, Christianity. And shacking, for those of you who don't know what shacking is just basically a man and a woman that are living together in and they're in a romantic relationship and they're not married. And so that became like a combination of fornication. So I'm just like, okay, this is what fornication means. And so I'm just like, okay, so there are others in the church that believe that this is the definition of fornication. But when God started teaching me, he helped me to understand that this is not his definition of the word fornication, which his definition is the biblical definition. And so his definition of fornication is separate from what Christianity teaches. And so we're going to look at the biblical definition of fornication. And when I tell you my mind was blown, it was blown. Okay, because I'm just like, what? Fornication doesn't mean sex before marriage? Like, what in the world? Okay, and so I was like, okay, you know, Jesus, okay, this is all shocking. But yeah, so let's look at what it is. Okay, so if we look up the word fornication in the original Greek, which was the translation of the New Testament, you know, back in the times of Jesus. And so if we look that up in the original Greek, the word for fornication is porneia. And so, I'm looking at my computer. If you're wondering, like, what is she looking at? You know, I'm looking down. Okay, and so porneia literally means, remember, this is fornication in the Greek. Porneia literally means illicit sexual intercourse. Okay, that's what it means, illicit sexual intercourse. Okay, and so it goes and gives you a list of these forbidden sexual intercourse acts not to do. Okay, and it says adultery, fornication, of course. Okay, homosexuality, lesbianism. We're gonna talk about those because lesbianism doesn't make sense for biblical, you know, reasons. It doesn't make sense. Homosexuality is partially right, partially. Okay, I'm gonna do that in some other videos. We're going to talk about that later. Okay, and so it means intercourse with animals, bestiality. Okay, and then it means sexual intercourse with close relatives, incest. Okay, sexual intercourse with a divorced woman or man. Okay, that's another form of adultery. Okay, and then it also means idolatry, which is, you know, like spiritually, you know, having that intercourse, you know, spiritual because we're spiritual beings, okay? And so it's a metaphor type of understanding idolatry, you know. Gosh, I hate when I go mind blank. Okay. Believing in worshiping other gods besides the one and true living God. I'm so sorry for that mind blank. That was so weird. But yeah, so it says nothing about sex before marriage. Why? Because in the Bible, sex is marriage. So fornication, you guys, is not, oh darn it, is not, where did it go? It's not sex before marriage. It's not sex before marriage. It is forbidden sexual intercourse. Forbidden sexual intercourse, which is bestiality and, you know, incest and adultery and all that stuff. Okay. So as we can see, sex before marriage is not the definition of fornication. Why does Christianity teach this? I do not know, because literally it just confuses me, because the Bible doesn't teach this, and so neither should Christianity. We're supposed to be teaching what the Bible teaches. And so I'm sorry, I get so passionate. And so anyway, we're supposed to be teaching what the Bible teaches. Okay, and so if the Bible doesn't teach that sex before marriage is a sin, or, you know, fornication, we should not be teaching this. Okay. So now that we understand that sex before marriage is not a sin, it is not fornication, why do me personally, believe that sex is marriage? Okay, why do I believe that? And I'm going to explain that to you really quick. I believe that because this is what God explained to me at the age of 13 and confirmed for me basically at the age of 25. Yeah, he confirmed it at the age of 25. I'm 25 right now. But anyway, yeah, at the age of 25, like earlier this year. No, he confirmed it when I was 24. I was still 24 because it was like in August. He confirmed it. Sorry, I'm just going back in time. Okay, yeah, he confirmed it when I was 24. But at the age of 13, I remember, it was like 12 or 13. I remember sitting in church at a Bible study or something like that. And someone was going forth. I don't know if it was who it was. It was a leader, of course. And he was talking about the Samaritan woman at the well in John 4, I believe. And I remember hearing this story, and I was like, so for the people who don't know about the Samaritan woman, the Samaritan woman at the well, Jesus was talking to her, you know, telling her about living water and everything. And so I was sitting there listening to this, and the part that really stuck out to me was, you know, when Jesus said, go fetch your husband. And the woman was like, I have no husband. And then he was like, you correctly said you have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands. And the one that you have now is not your husband. And I'm just like, wait a second, Jesus. You telling me that this woman had 5 husbands, but she's saying that she has no husband? What do you mean? And so I'm like, Jesus, what? And I'm like, wait a minute. Are you telling me that she had sex with those 5 men, and you're saying that those are her husbands because she had sex with them? And God said, yes. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, no. And I'm like, you're telling me every time that I have sex, you're gonna consider those men my husband? He's like, yes. I'm like, nope, we're not doing that. Okay, that's what we're not gonna do. Okay, because I'm like, if I'm not in love with them, you know, I don't want God to consider them my husband. Ew, no. And so I'm just like, okay, no. Okay, and so that's why I believe, because God showed me at that time when I was 13 that sex is marriage basically. And so I went through my whole life and everything, well, not my whole life, but until now, and he never explained to me why, like gave me like a real explanation of why it's he considers sex marriage. Like, I didn't understand why. I just always took his answer as, you know, yes, I consider that marriage, and that is your husband when you have sex with him. And so I just took that as his answer, because I'm like, he's God, I have to listen to him. And so, you know, when he told me that, and you know, I just went through life, and then now he's basically giving me the reason of why. We're gonna talk about that reason. We're gonna look at this story a little bit deeper. We're gonna look at some of Jesus's teachings when he was here on earth, and look at why the Bible considers sex to be marriage. But we're not gonna do that right now because this video, I know, is already long, and so I'm gonna save that for part 2. So subscribe and you will be alerted when the next video comes, or just keep on the lookout on my Instagram, or you know, for my friends and family on Facebook, just keep a lookout on there and you will know exactly when the next one comes out. And I'm kind of excited but kind of scared at the same time, because it's like my mind is just completely blown. God is so good. And so anyway, keep a lookout, and if you want to subscribe, if you don't, you know, hey. But I love you guys, and see you in a few.